and today I'll be talking about ethics, in particular the views on ethics held by Socrates and Ayn Rand, and how they compare and contrast to the Buddha. Ethics, morals, and the act of being just. These topics have been widely debated since the dawn of man. What does it mean to have good ethics, or to possess good morals, to be just? We often find these questions facing us throughout our day-to-day lives. The immortal philosopher Socrates himself debated this very topic with his disciple Plato, Plato's older brother. His name was Glaucon, and he stated straightforth that he had not been persuaded by Socrates' teachings. Glaucon started the debate by asking if Socrates would agree on classifying goods into three classes. Socrates did agree to the three classes as Glaucon had put them forth, and Glaucon then asked Socrates to which of the classes he would place justice. Socrates answered that he would place justice in the highest of all classes. Glaucon told Socrates that there were many men who would disagree and in fact would put justice in the troublesome class. Socrates then told Glaucon that he was aware of these people, but considered himself to be too stupid to be convinced by them. Glaucon wanted to be swayed by Socrates' views of justice and injustice, and so started by stating what he thought the nature and origin of justice were according to the common view. Glaucon then told Socrates that his interpretation of the nature and origin of justice was this: that to do injustice is good, to suffer injustice is evil, and that laws were created as a mean or compromise, and in turn these laws were the nature and origin of justice. Glaucon illustrated his point by telling the story of Gyges, a shepherd who had found a magical ring which made him invisible. Gyges eventually used the ring to slay the king and take his kingdom. Glaucon asked Socrates to then suppose there had been two such rings. One would be discovered by a man who was seen to be just, and the other to be discovered by a man who was seen to be unjust. Glaucon believed that both men would do as they felt, and thus the actions of the just would become unjust, for he felt that man who believed he could safely be unjust would be just that. Glaucon stated that any man who would feel contrary to this would be looked upon as a fool by his peers, but that they would praise him outwardly for fear of suffering injustice themselves. Glaucon told Socrates that the highest reach for the unjust would be to be deemed just where they were not, and the highest reach for the just would be just while being deemed unjust, and that only when these extremes have been met should judgment be passed as to who is the happiest. Glaucon felt that it was evident that through these proposals the just would suffer and the unjust would lead an ideal life. Socrates replied by asking Glaucon to imagine if a man's soul were molded into the image of many beasts and one man. This man's soul would then be one identity with many heads and many bodies, including that of the man. Socrates then took this image and enshrouded it with the image of a man so that it completely encompassed the soul. Socrates told Glaucon that if he could envision this, then he would see that by being unjust, a man would be feeding those parts of his soul that were beasts and allowing them to grow strong and fight each other. But most importantly, they would dominate the man figure they were molded to within the soul. Socrates also told Glaucon that the man who would live justly would in turn feed the inner man of his soul and strengthen him to master those beasts and thus live in harmony with them. Socrates further proved his point by defining that which is beautiful and that which is ugly as being those things that give mastery to man over the beasts and those things that enslave the tame to the wild, respectively. With this point being agreed upon, Socrates stated that now it could be clearly seen that to be unjust was to make one's best part a slave to one's worst, and that for those who did not possess the means to govern themselves from within, there were laws so that we may all live in harmony and be steered the same way. Ayn Rand also had views on this topic. She felt that moral codes were designed to drain your life. Morality and practicality are opposites, and that your life belongs to you. There is only one fundamental alternative in the universe: existence or non-existence. Plants and animals possess an automatic code for survival that keeps them from destroying themselves, but we as man do not possess this code. Man has the power to act as his own destroyer. Our code of values can be broken in between those things that are proper to the life of a rational being, being good, and those things which destroy it, which would be evil. Man's highest moral purpose is the achievement of happiness, and the purpose of morality is to teach you not to suffer and die, but to enjoy yourself and live. Man is not exempt from the laws of existence, and it is for the purpose of self-preservation that man needs a code of morality. For you do not have to live. It is your basic act of choice. But if you choose to live, you must live as a man. To live as a man is a moral choice. The alternative option to being alive is a life of self-destruction. There is a double standard of morality that splits mankind into two camps. It is this: if you wish it, it's evil. If others wish it, it's good. This code would have you sacrifice your happiness for the happiness of others. Rand then asked the question, why is it moral to serve the happiness of others, but not your own? Under a morality of sacrifice, the first value you sacrifice is morality. The next is self-esteem. The justification of this sacrifice is more corrupt than the corruption it purports to justify. Love is the expression of your values, and yet your morality demands that you divorce your love from values and hand it down to any vagrant. This same morality tells you that the purpose of love is to set you free of the bonds of morality. Such is your morality of sacrifice, and such are the twin ideals it offers: to refashion the life of your body in the image of a human stockyard, and to mold the life of your spirit into the image of a dump. Existence among you then becomes a giant pretense, where if the choices presented to you become practical versus impractical, then your choices become to be moral or to live. The sole result of this murderous doctrine has been to remove morality from life. You must accept the fact that the achievement of your happiness is the only moral purpose of your life. This happiness is the proof of your moral integrity. Learn to value yourself and to fight for your happiness. When you learn that pride is the sum of all virtues, you will learn to live